right, thank you all so much for joining us. My name is Emily Dugan and I work for Commute Options and I'm a member of the Oregon Safe Routes Technical Assistance Provider team. Welcome to part 2 of our preparing for the 2022-23 school year. This webinar is going to be focusing on planning some walk and roll events. And we'll go ahead and get started here. Here's our agenda for today. Do a quick welcome, go over some ODOT Safe Routes resources that are available for free to coordinators, schools, anyone who wants to plan a walk and roll event. We'll discuss some incentives too that are also free that you can hand out to students participating in walk and roll events. Then Lindsay and I are going to stop talking and we're going to hand it over to our coordinators who are going to talk about their experiences creating these walk and roll events, running these walk and roll events. And then finally, at the end, we'll have some time for some questions and answers. Awesome. Just for a quick overview for folks that might not be familiar with walk and roll days. These were started nationally in 1997. Essentially, they are just encouragement events that are there to get students interested in walking and rolling to school. For some students, the idea of walking and rolling every day and just jumping into that could be kind of intimidating. So these events are just massive celebration events to get students walking and rolling with each other and encourage them to consider doing that in the future on their own and making that a general practice. These end up having a huge impact on program participation year long outside of these walk and roll events. So they're very important and it's a great way to start a program and to get students walking and rolling. I apologize too. I want to say to any Oregon State fans, I thought that this picture was really adorable. And so I wanted to include it. ODOT Safe Routes has a lot of different planning resources available to help make the planning process for these walk and roll days easier. It can seem very daunting at first to try to plan a massive event like this with, maybe multiple schools or lots of different grades. So we try to provide these resources that are going to make it easier for you to just implement these. Currently, we have resources available for the days listed here. So it's International Walk and Roll to School Day, which is in October, Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day in November, Winter Walk and Roll to School Day in February, April Earth Month, and May Walk and Roll Challenge. And all of these resources can be found at OregonSafeRoutes.org/walk and roll. Some of the resources that we provide are these monthly toolkits. These are essentially just a one-stop shop for you to find things that you need to organize these monthly events. There's activity ideas, instructions for incentive ordering. We also include some social media and photo and copy templates that you can adjust and use for your purposes, and just basically things that are, copy paste, make it easy for you to implement them in your planning. We also have started including these bingo cards. These are a way for students to feel more engaged on their walk or roll to school. Right here, you see the Ruby Bridges bingo card. This was intended to help students learn more about Ruby Bridges, practice some safe walking and rolling tips, especially in November when it starts to get darker out, and just engage them as they're walking and rolling and learn more about the day that they are celebrating. Currently, we have these available for Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day and Winter Walk and Roll to School Day. As I said too, we also have these pre-made social media posts and copy for you to adapt for your specific events, as well as some Strider and Viv graphics too that you can copy, paste, make your own graphics. All of that is free and available for you to use. For the social media posts too and our posters, we do translate these into Spanish as well, so that you can use those in your areas as well. Great, and with that, I'm going to pass it over to Lindsay, who's going to talk about incentives.
Hello, everyone. So let me drop the link really quick into the chat because incentive ordering is open. So this is our individual school order form. So this is the one that you want to use if you are ordering incentives for just one school, or if you're ordering for multiple schools and they're shipping to different addresses. If you are shipping a whole bunch of orders, like say for 3 or more schools to one address, you can use our bulk order form. So the bulk order form you can get from your hub lead, or you can email me as well at lindsay@thestreettrust.org. and I can share with that link with you as well. So the items that we've got, we have a whole bunch of different ones. This is just a sampling here, not all of them. But we have reflective goodies like reflective backpacks, reflective shoelaces, reflective stickers. We have Strider and Viv. If you haven't met them yet, definitely be sure to pick up some of the comics and read them yourself, as well as handing them out to students. We've started kind of integrating them as mascots for the events, and getting more items like the backpack here in this picture that has them on there. They're in both English and Spanish, so they're a really awesome item to be able to give out to kids. Right now we have 2 volumes of it that you can order. We have some of our usual items like pencils. Up in the upper right, you might notice we have a brand new logo that we just got. So we're ordering stickers with those, as well as beanies. The beanies will probably not be here in time for Walk and Roll to School Day yet. So expect to see those rolling out with Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day as an option. One of the cool things this year is we have more money to spend on incentives thanks to the Oregon Department of Transportation, which means you guys can all get more free incentives as well. So for those of you who've ordered previously, you know that typically you get 10 points that you can spend on whichever items you want to get for your schools. And now that's increased to 15 points. So you can get more cool stuff, not have to, split the points out as much and make such difficult decisions. You can get a few big items that are worth more points, as well as a few smaller items that are worth less points, where you can have more items to give out to more students. Yeah. I think the last thing I've got is posters. So traditionally we have only provided printed posters for Walk and Roll to School Day, and we've provided digital versions that you can print out for all the rest of your events. Now with this new funding that we've got, we're going to have printed posters available for each of the different events. So that'll be on the order form that you can select if you want posters, and it'll just be a quick yes or no. That costs no points or anything. That'll be just totally free to get. So again, that'll be for all our events moving forward. We are going to have printed posters for y'all. I think that's pretty much all I've got, but if you have more questions about incentives, or you want to chat about things, or ideas for things that you think would be really cool for us to add later on, please always email me, again, lindsay@thestreettrust.org. Thanks.
Thank you, Lindsay. And going forward too, if you have any questions, feel free to pop them in the chat and we'll get to those in the Q&A session, or just save it for the Q&A session. Great, thank you. And now we're going to move on to our speakers. Unfortunately, Julie Van Horn could not make it today due to an unforeseen circumstance, but I will be sending out her slides after this webinar too. Just she has some really interesting stuff in there and a great perspective. But today we have Leah Beato Lewis from Beaverton School District and Emily Loberg from the Mid-Willamette Valley Council of Governments. And they're going to tell us about their experiences organizing these events and give some tips. So first, we'll start with Leah.
Thank you. So my name's Leah. I'm the district coordinator for Beaverton Safe Routes to School in the Beaverton School District. Just as some background, BSD is the 3rd largest school district in the state of Oregon. So our program serves 53 schools in grades pre-K through 12. And I wanted to start by sharing just a bit of background info about the evolution of our program and our biggest annual Walk and Roll event, which is International Walk and Roll to School Day. So for us in Beaverton, the Safe Routes to School program started with my predecessor in about 2009. She primarily started working with just a handful of elementary schools, and she hosted the district's first International Walk and Roll to School Day for 8 schools. So if you fast forward through her time building this program in Beaverton to 2019, that's when I was hired. And the district actually decided to assume the grants that fund our program. So instead of hiring an outside contractor, they took those grants and took ownership of them, and they created a district Safe Routes to School coordinator position, and that's what I was hired for. So at that time, International Walk and Roll to School Day had grown to include about 28 schools each year, which was about 10,000 participants. When I organized the first event for myself in 2019, I quickly saw some inequities about the way the event was organized. Our traditional model in Beaverton for our walk and roll events relied on recruiting school-based coordinators, usually a parent, to create the event for their school community. And then our program would supply them with prizes via Lindsay and the Street Trust and ideas. But ultimately, it was up to those volunteers to carry out the event at the individual schools. So what I saw immediately was that our affluent schools were the ones that had the highest participation rates. They easily organized these larger events. They had more volunteers, while most of our Title I schools were either left out completely and didn't have an event, or they just had a staff member kind of willing to organize a very small walk and roll day. So of course that inequity bothered me, and we also obviously went through COVID and the shutting down of schools and got to really rethink how we organize this event. And we decided that we would change up that model and coordinate International Walk and Roll to School Day ourselves for all of our schools, which was a big undertaking, as our staff is just myself as a full-time coordinator and one part-time assistant. But now every school in the district is able to give out prizes and host an event. Not only did it solve our equity issue, it also doubled our participation rate. So last year we had 53 schools participate with over 20,000 students. If you are new to this journey, I would just say, don't be afraid to start out small. You see in this graph, we started out with 8 schools, and you can, find different ways to grow your program and participation over time. Okay, next slide. So how do you do this? Organize a large district-wide event. So instead of making this an optional event where we would email our school communities and ask them to register with us, we now just send out an email to our district principals and head secretaries and inform them that a district-wide event is happening. We provide them with clear instructions. We provide them with an article and graphics that they can include in their communication with their students and families. And then we give them a date that we're going to deliver their prizes. So last year, we were able to secure a Metro sponsorship that allowed us to provide each school with a scooter and a helmet grand prize, and then 5 reflective bags with smaller travel safety prizes inside to raffle off to students. The added bonus of being within a district, we were able to partner with our district communications department so that they actually are able to post the promotional information for these walk and roll events directly onto the district's social media sites and websites, and they can post them directly for the schools to families. So even if a principal decides not to advertise the event, the district is already doing it for them. So it does take a lot more work on our part to organize these events for all the schools. We typically know that we'll be working a bit of overtime in preparation for these events. As you know, our #1 goal was to make it as easy as possible for our school staff. We know they're busy people, so we try to, not burden them with more work. So the way we've organized it is we provide a class list for each teacher. I'm able to get that information from the school district. It does mean that I'm creating about 1,000 spreadsheets and that I individually email each of those spreadsheets directly to the teacher. So it just shows up in their inbox. And then all they do is they have a checklist and it has their student's name on it. And they just take a student travel tally on the day of the event because it's already being promoted. Kids know about it, families know about it. Now the teacher is just taking a tally to see how students actually traveled that day. Then they turn that list into their school office. And the only thing the school office staff is asked to do is to randomly select from those lists someone who walked and rolled to receive the raffle prize winners. They've already got the prizes. We've delivered it to their office, so they're able to hand them out to students right there at the school. And then they return all of those class lists to us, and we're able to use those numbers to calculate participation rates. We do make an effort to provide each school with a raffle prize for teachers as well, as an incentive to get those teachers to turn in those class lists. And also just to reward them for assisting us with this, this event. So for schools that do have parents that still want to volunteer and help out, we give them some options too. We encourage them to coordinate a walking school bus on their event day, and we're able to provide them with, you know, some extra prizes and supplies to carry that out. Okay, next slide. So just some additional notes. One thing that we developed during COVID, when our program kind of switched to serving students learning from home, we kept our events running by offering a Google form for students who could self-mark their participation by taking a trip around their neighborhood. And then we use those Google forms as their raffle entry, and we're able to still raffle off prizes that way. So we have kept that model in place on event days for our district online learning program. So we still have a large group of students who still learn at home through, in Beaverton, it's called the Flex online learning program. And then we also use that for our high school students. We tend to have a lower number of high school students that participate in these programs, but if they do, they can fill out a Google form and still be entered into our raffle. The link to get to these forms is all on our website. So one of the things we've done to streamline communication delivery is that all of our promotional materials that talk about walk and roll events direct students and parents to go to our website, and then that's where we list out the information. So that way, when you're sending out a flyer or a social media blast about event day, you don't have to include all of the nitty-gritty details. It just sends them to our website, and then they can find that there. And then additionally, we do provide targeted assistance. We usually choose 5 to 6 schools each year that we target with extra help throughout the whole year. So when choosing those schools, we're looking at things like their participation rate in our program, if they're a Title I school, what their average car trip is, do they have a lot of drivers, and any changes to their non-transportation zone. So if we have a school with a large neighborhood that's just had busing removed and they're new to walking and rolling, that might bump them up on our list of schools to target. So on event day, we provide them with assistance too. So we might organize and help a parent lead a big walking school bus. These are the schools that we might invite the mayor or the superintendent to come participate with, to just generate more enthusiasm to create a bigger event. One year we coordinated with our middle school leadership students, and they came down to their feeder school, and they were the ones that handed out prizes at the door, and they dressed up as their school mascot. So just, yeah, giving them an extra boost on event day. Lastly, of course, we tried our best to plan early. Sometimes that's hard, but we do start in about July and August, and we choose all of our events for the whole year ahead of time so we can have them all planned out. We don't do the same events every year necessarily. Obviously, the big ones like International Walk and Roll Day is standard. We always do that one. But we do look at our parent and travel surveys to help determine which events we really want to include. So for example, bus rates for our district have really fallen over time. Less students are actually riding their school bus. And then with COVID, that drastically took a nosedive. So this year will be the second year in a row that we're hosting a Love the Bus event. So that's an event where we just encourage students to get back on their school bus. And we really do a lot of promotional information about how riding your school bus can, benefit the planet and benefit student safety by helping us decrease congestion and traffic around schools. Additionally, weather has risen to the top 3 barriers reported by our parents for why they choose not to walk and roll. So we'll for sure be including a wet weather event this year. So that's kind of what I have. Thanks for letting me share today.
Thank you so much, Leah. That was great. Lots of good information. I wanted to remind people too, as Leah was saying, you don't have to do the events that we list through Oregon Safe Routes. You can make your own. For example, Jessie Wilson in LaGrange, she has a Cross Guard Appreciation Day in February as kind of a Valentine's Day spinoff, and the kids write Valentine's to the crossing guards. So there's lots of great ideas, and you don't have to do just one. You don't have to do the same events each year. It's kind of choose your own adventure. Thank you so much, Leah. And with that, we're going to move to Emily Loberg.
Hi, so my name is Emily, and I'm with the Salem-Keizer Safe Routes to School program. Our program started at the beginning of 2020, so we are still a pretty new program, and we also started right before the pandemic hit, so it was a lot of adjusting and being flexible during that time period. Another thing that's unique or interesting about our program is that we are not housed within the school district for Salem-Keizer. We are housed within the Mid-Willamette Valley Council of Governments. So that gives us a little extra challenge when it comes to figuring out the best way to communicate with schools and coordinate with the school district. So I will be coming from that angle of things. We do hope to be housed within the school district eventually, but this is where we're at right now as a new program. Okay, next slide. So first, I just wanted to go over the kinds of walk and roll events that we have put on so far, just to talk about the distinctions between them for context. And then I'll go over some recommendations for planning walk and roll events. So the ones that we've done are the May Walk and Roll Challenge, International Walk and Roll to School Day, and Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day. So the May Walk and Roll Challenge is a month-long challenge in the month of May. And basically it's a challenge where each time a student walks or rolls to school, they get one raffle ticket entry for the challenge. And your program can kind of choose what kind of time period you want the activity to be in. So basically, it could be that it's every time they walk or roll to school that they get a raffle ticket or that it counts for activity, or it could be anytime they do any kind of activity, walking or rolling at all, even if it's not to school, that they get to count that towards the challenge. Basically, it depends on what you're wanting to prioritize. If you're looking to prioritize the transportation aspect of walking and rolling, then only counting trips to and from school is what you will want to do. our program, the last 2 years that we've done the Walk and Roll Challenge, we've chosen that at time they walk or roll on a weekday, it counts. And that's to prioritize accessibility, since not all students have the option for walking and rolling to school, depending on where they live, if they live too far away, or it's just not something their family is able to do. So we didn't want them to be excluded. But that's a choice that you can make when you're designing this program for your school or your school district, is when you want activities to be counted toward the challenge. So there's a few different ways that students can track their activities. You can have a paper form available, and I have an example on the next slide that shows that, where the students can kind of check off which days they walked or rolled, or you can have an online form. We use both just so that it makes it easier for people to access if the paper form is easier for them, or if the online form is easier. And the form can be mailed in. Teachers can collect the forms and then mail them to us, or scan and email them to us. And you can also, to get the form to the teachers, you can send them in the mail or visit schools in person to deliver them. We have been visiting schools and doing pedestrian safety trainings during PE classes, so then we were giving out the forms after that. And then we also have created this online form on our website that's really easy to fill out. They just enter their name and what school they're at, and just their grade, and then there's like a selection that says how many days they walked or rolled to school. And it's just, for us, we're counting weekdays. And then there's small prizes for all the participants, depending on how many you have. I think last year we only had like 30 participants or something like that, whereas this year it was over 100. So we didn't provide the small prizes for each participant this time, but we had grand prizes for the winners that we raffled off. And what we try to do is make it proportional to the number of participants at each school. So we were doing one in every 10 students. So say if 60 students entered at a certain school, then we would raffle off 6 grand prizes to that school. And that way we wouldn't have some kind of situation where a school had a ton of entries but didn't get any winners, and then another school had only a few entries and had more winners, just to make it fair. We did have to group some schools together that had lower participation, but we were aiming to have at least one winner at each school. And next slide. So International Walk and Roll to School Day is a little different in that it's a one-day event rather than a month-long challenge where students are tracking their activity. The slide said it's the first Wednesday in October, but this year it's on October 12th, so the second Wednesday this year. So it's a one-day event where students walk or roll to school in the morning, and something that's an option that you can do if a student lives too far away or something like that, is to encourage parents to drop their students off farther from school. So if there's a place that's a few blocks away, that they can park and drop their kids off so that they have at least walked or rolled part of the way. And that also helps with drop-off congestion. So it's a win-win all around, because then they get to participate. And it's a way to help the schools. So the students who walk and roll to school, as they arrive, the school staff are there to greet them. So administrators or teachers set up a table outside the school in the morning before students get there, so that they can greet the students as they arrive. And we encourage them to wear fun costumes, for example, maybe dress as a school mascot, decorate the table, and take photos of students as they arrive. And they're also giving out small prizes to each student who walks and rolls, and as well as raffle tickets to raffle off a larger prize. Okay, next slide. And then there's Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day, which it says walk and roll, but it's just walk to school day. It's not walk and roll. Sorry about that. So that event is always on November 14th or the following Wednesday every year. Last year it was on November 17th, since the 14th was on a Sunday, but when the 14th is on a weekday, it's on the 14th. And this event is to commemorate the desegregation history. So Ruby Bridges in 1960 walked alone to an all-white school after a federal judge had ordered Louisiana schools to desegregate because Brown v. Board of Education had passed 15 years prior, but segregation was still continuing. And so November 14th was the first day that she walked to school, and she faced a lot of discrimination from white students and parents. So this event is a really special event, I think, that's an opportunity to both celebrate her bravery and learn about that history in the classroom. So Safe Routes to School programs can provide materials for classroom education and prizes for walking and rolling. You can do it in a number of ways. It can be modeled after International Walk and Roll to School Day, where it's a one-day thing with prizes for walking and rolling. But individual schools can choose to make it more of a month-long thing with classroom education or activity that's more dispersed over a time period. So there's options with that. And again, we provide prizes for walking and rolling. And ODOT, as well as the Ruby Bridges Foundation, both have more resources about Ruby Bridges. I'll post a link in the chat here. Okay, next slide. So now I'm just going to go over some general recommendations for walk and roll events. As everyone will say, start planning early. I recommend starting months in advance with your plans. And you can start out by just creating a weekly plan for your communication schedule, planning and making promotion materials, ordering and creating educational materials, and planning out your actions. Something that has been important for our program is to know your point of contact for distributing information to schools. If you're housed at a specific school or within the school district, this is easier, but for us, we are not. And so one of our big challenges getting started was just figuring out who was the best person to contact to distribute information to schools and establishing rapport with that person. So for you, it might be a member of the school district cabinet, for example. That's who we have found worked for us. So for us, it's the Director of Elementary Curriculum and Instruction. That's their title, and they're within the school district cabinet. Because you might not necessarily want to just go all out contacting all teachers and administrators at schools, because that might not be appropriate, and people might see it as more of a nuisance. And so you kind of want to tread carefully is what we've found when you're not within the school district. And then, so that's been really one of the most important things for us, is figuring out that point of contact with the school district. And then as you're getting started with planning, it's really helpful to create a standard format for any letters you might be sending, social media posts, and other forms of communication. And that'll really come in handy as things get down to crunch time to have those available. And then you'll want to start thinking about what kind of prizes you'll want to provide and offer, and then order those. Think about educational and promotional materials that you'll want to hand out, start creating and ordering, that kind of thing. Next slide. Communication. So this is really, really important. Once more, you'll want to contact early, give schools plenty of time to know that the event is coming up, and what it entails, but also continue to follow up, because it can be easy to see that something's happening and then lose track of it. So you want to stick to your plan and follow your schedule for communication. And I would say contact months in advance. First was just an announcement about the event. It doesn't have to be full of all the information about what to do if you don't want to really overwhelm with a lot of information. And then it depends on how you're doing it, but we have schools sign up. I know Leah's school district has figured out another way to do things that sounded really awesome to me. Right now we're at the asking for sign-up stage. So that's kind of the first thing you want to do if you're doing it that way, is have an announcement and ask for signups, and then follow that up. What we have done is we have a clear one-page letter, which I have an example photo of on the slide. That's not intended for you to try and read all the tiny words, just an example of what the format might be. So that explains what the schools need to do and what you will provide to them to make that easy and achievable. Make sure if you're drafting that kind of thing that you edit it for readability and logical organization. I find bullet points are really helpful. It's just so it makes things easy to scan and read. Because anything that makes it out of order or unclear is a barrier and makes it makes it less likely for folks to participate. So I find editing is really important. Then follow up. You might want to figure out what mode of communication is best for the people you're talking to. They might prefer calls or emails. I know different people prefer different things. You want it to be often enough to keep folks aware of the event, but not so often that you're bothering folks. So that again is another thing to kind of figure out as you go, because it's really going to vary. But you want to determine what works for you and what meets your needs and those of who you're contacting, whether that's weekly or monthly or every 2 weeks, or you might want to schedule regular video chat meetings with your point of contact if that's the best way to make sure that you're staying on track. And that's something you can kind of ask them what works best for them as you go along. Also, communicate with multiple channels. So you'll have your point of contact at the school district, but you can also communicate with principals, teachers, and school staff. For example, if there's certain teachers or principals that you've worked with before and you feel comfortable contacting, and of course the ones who signed up for the event. Also community leaders or parent volunteers who are really active in the school, really anyone you've established a rapport with. And then also make sure you're communicating on social media, post regularly about the event, and include links to your posts in communications so that you can get those shared. And next slide. A really important thing to make the event accessible and easy for schools to put on is to provide the resources to make that possible for them. Anything that you can make bilingual is really helpful because it makes it more accessible. So for example, our activity tracking sheets for the May Walk and Roll Challenge, we have a Spanish version of those. So any communication materials, marketing materials, social media posts, if you can get in the habit of making sure they're all bilingual, that's a really excellent way to communicate. And then marketing resources are helpful to provide. So physical posters for the schools to put up, digital flyers for them to share, social media blurbs and images, providing all those things can be really helpful. The activity tracking sheets for the month-long challenges like May Walk and Roll, providing those is a good thing to do. And then raffle tickets, if you're having a raffle as part of an event, providing those also helps out. And then the prizes. So for the May Walk and Roll Challenge, we purchased scooters for the grand prizes the last 2 years. So the picture shows the scooter winners at one of the schools. I really like that picture. I think it's a lot of fun. And we also have an annual art contest that we've made ordered customized backpacks for that contest. They have our logo on them. And so those are examples of bigger prizes you can offer. Smaller prizes, you can use the incentives from ODOT that Lindsay talked about earlier in the presentation, but a lot of things like stickers, coloring and activity books, the reflective shoelaces, pencils. We have these like little bicycle frame bags that we ordered with our name on them that we've been giving out at events. So things like that to give out to everyone who participates. And next slide. And just some final thoughts. I think aiming to keep the event low-key, lighthearted, and fun is just a good thing to keep in mind, because it can get kind of stressful trying to make sure big events happen. And just remembering that it's important to make sure it stays fun can just help keep the stress in check and make sure everyone has a good time. Think about being willing to customize for different schools depending on what they need. If they need forms and materials edited in a different way, or they need their prizes delivered in a certain way, just being able to be flexible is really helpful. And like Leah said, being okay with starting small and building from there is a good thing, because the events happen every year. So the next one is coming sooner than you think. And you'll always be able to build on what you've done before. And it gets easier every year, especially as you have templates built, such as the letters that you're sending out, and you can edit them every year. So starting with what feels manageable and then building on that every year is a great way to do it. And then with that, I wanted to open up for questions for either Leah or me.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Leah and Emily. Yeah, we have a few questions in the chat that I'll just go down here. Sarah, to your question about banners, I'm gonna have you and Lindsay coordinate on that one. Lindsay would be the person to ask about getting a replacement banner.
So I'll say, we haven't made walk and roll banners before. I'm curious if that is one of the ones from the recognition program. And if it is the ones from the recognition program, we will be, I think, reopening that program later this year. It's been kind of on pause because it's hard to, ask people like, what all are the different things you've been doing when COVID has made it very difficult to do a lot of those things. So assuming that reopens later this year, that would be a good time to have your school send in an application, tell us about all the cool things that you're working on, and then yeah, if the banner is looking real rough, we would be able to replace it at that time.
And if we're on all these emails, will we be notified that the recognition program is back and alive? Will that be?
Yeah, I assume that'll be something when we do roll it out again that we'll do, put it in the newsletter and social media and things like that. Maybe we'll even do a webinar about it. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Of course. Then it looks like from the chat, Patty had a question for Leah. What type of raffle prizes do you put together for teachers and parents? I had the same question, so.
Good question, Patty. Originally we had wanted to give out gift cards to teachers. And we had actually written that into our Metro sponsorship that provided us with prizes. And then I found out through our school district that as a district employee, we're not able to gift another district employee with a gift card. So that limited our options. Last year, we ended up being very safe in the guidance that we received from our district. They really wanted the prizes to be something for the teacher to use within their classroom, not for them personally, which was kind of a bummer to me. But so we provided them with some really fun, like office type supplies and a little baggie. And we provided like one of those prizes per school. So one teacher per school received a goodie. We're still in kind of the thinking stages for what it's going to be this year. I'm trying to figure out still ways to get around, like if the gift cards were donated, like coupons from places, could that be part of the prize? So I would just suggest highly that if you are within a district like myself, that you work with your district to find out what are their rules and regulations. I think as either like a nonprofit or an outside agency, I think you have a little more leeway. So like our PTO groups, we encourage them to often gift like $5 coffee cards as prizes when they're doing some incentive programs with other parents. And since they're a PTO group, they have the leeway to do that.
Thank you, Leah. Yeah, I know that Whitney and Commute Options, she's our Safe Routes to School coordinator too. You want to incentivize the adults as well too, and finding creative ways to do that is great. Lindsay, I think actually this would be a great question for you from Sarah. Am I correct in understanding that PPS doesn't have an equivalent of a Safe Routes to School coordinator for the district in the way that Beaverton does?
So traditionally, that's how it's been, all the Safe Routes work was mostly housed at the Portland Bureau of Transportation, with various programs coming from like local nonprofits like the Street Trust, Community Cycling Center, Pair Bike Works, etc. However, this past grant cycle, PPS actually applied for and got a grant from ODOT. So they are going to be hiring their own Safe Routes School coordinator. So I believe that should be happening October 1. So I don't think they're going to have that person, on the ground running for the October Walk and Roll to School Day. But things may be a little different looking at Ruby Bridges and Winter Walk and some of these other events coming down the road, depending on how quickly they get that person going.
Yeah, thank you. I just, when I look at the Safe Routes to School website, it says like for all these different resources and questions, like contact your, Safe Routes to School coordinator. But then it's like, well, if we're talking about a PPS school, that's basically a parent volunteer, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of times it's been the PBOT has a pretty good sized team, and they're able to support a lot of the different efforts. I think it's just difficult to like force a school to do something. And that's been a common complaint, is that when you are saying something from either an outside nonprofit, the city, something like that, it's a lot harder than when you work with the school district and the district says, you should do this thing. So hopefully it'll be easier to get into more schools and do more awesome work moving forward.
Excellent. Then we got another question from Sarah as well too. Are the grand prizes of bikes or scooters that some schools offer donated by bike shops? How are these purchased or obtained?
So the scooters that we gave out, we purchased ourselves. I think that we got them from Target. So they were pretty cost effective. There is one bike shop in Salem that's like a nonprofit that would probably be able to donate a limited number of bikes, but that's not an avenue we've pursued yet.
Yeah, and for our program, we utilize that a Metro sponsorship. So it was an application that we filled out for a $5,000 grant to purchase some extra incentives. And then additional prizes that we provided, if they don't come from Street Trust, previously we did have a budget written into one of our grants for some material items and some incentives. So that was just kind of written into a previous grant that we had.
I'll also jump in here too and say some companies like Walmart and Target will do small on-demand grants as well. I know some coordinators have applied for those and used those funds to buy scooters or bikes as well too. And they can send out some information on that in the follow-up email as well.
Can I just ask a question? With Leah, you mentioned the $5,000 Metro grant. Is that something that's, I mean, the whole world of grants and making grant requests is very intimidating to me. I've never written a grant. I don't know anything about it, but I know it's key to these programs. I mean, where does a person start? Is there a list somewhere? Is this Metro grant, is this open year round? Is it rolling application? Could you just say more about all of that?
Sure, I'll provide the limited knowledge that I know. I believe that Metro sponsorship is open to Metro area Safe Routes to School programs, and you can apply once a year is what my understanding is on that. And I do think you can apply if funding is available throughout the year. I don't think they've opened up the new round to my knowledge for this school year. Lindsay might know more information, but grants in general, I mean, this last year, because when I was hired, the grants had already been written in 2019, and then they just are expiring. And so last year was my first time ever writing these big grants. Luckily, I had the old grants to look at. That was a huge help. But aside from ODOT and Metro for myself, I just went online and did a lot of Googling, and I applied for other grants. I didn't get them. There were several that I didn't get, but I just Googled and tried to find anything that seemed like I could fit into what we were doing.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I'll link here. Metro has one of their big ones is these mini grants. That is 25 of them for schools across the metro area, and you get $500 to do some kind of Safe Routes to School project or activity or something like that. So that's one of the easiest ways to get money for a project that you want to do right now. And granted, $500 isn't a whole ton of money, but it's good for, a smaller program or smaller event, things like that. And then, further questions about the Metro funding, you can send to Noelle Mickleberry. I can drop her email as well. Just give me a second. All right. There we go. I also saw we had another question about incentives in here. What is the schedule for incentive ordering? Will it be open throughout the entire school year? I think we probably will unofficially leave it open. But you'll have to, click on the website into a specific event, and that's where you'll find the link for it. We'll have, specific incentives for some of the different events. Like, I don't know if we're going to have the beanies available for the May challenge, since that's more of a fall winter item. And we have specific event posters for which event is coming up. Ruby Bridges has specific stickers and bookmarks that are Ruby Bridges themed. So things like that. If you're ever looking for stuff for an event and you're not sure if you should order through this or not, again, feel free to email me. I'm happy to chat further. Oh yeah, umbrellas. I've definitely heard that one before. Yeah, that'd be a neat one too for us to explore. Thanks.
And then Patty asks if Emily and Leah would mind sharing some of their resources or printed materials, or if that's already on the Basecamp.
So I don't personally have access to the Basecamp, so I'm not sure how to do that, but I just posted a link in the chat to our Walk and Roll Day page. Well, this is actually Walk and Roll May Challenge month page, and it's not linked on our website right now since it's not May anymore, but you can still access the page from the URL. So I just pasted that in the chat, and you can download the forms in English or Spanish from that page. And it also shows an example of how to do the online entry form, or how we did it. I'm going to also send files in the chat with the activity form as a Word document, because on the website it downloads as a PDF, and that's harder to edit if you wanted it. So I'll be just a moment with that.
Yeah. Emily, you can also send those to me and I can send them out in the follow-up email about this as well.
Okay.
Yeah, and for our resources, we do upload things to Basecamp. I haven't done that in a while, so I bet things that we created last year are probably not in there. So I just made a note to myself to update. And then I'm going to put my email in the chat too. And Patty or any of you, if you're ever looking for something in particular, or have a question, also feel free to just reach out via email. I'm always happy to share any and everything that I can.
Awesome. All right, we're right up right at noon here. So I'm going to go ahead and close this out with a few more resources. And yes, please, Leah and Emily, feel free to put your emails in the chat. For all of the Walk and Roll resources that we talked about today, you can find those at OregonSafeRoutes.org/walkroll. Sign up for a monthly newsletter. If you scroll the bottom of our homepage, there's an area to sign up there. We put in all this information in our monthly newsletter. And then finally, if you're able to, join your monthly hub meetings. Lindsay leads the Portland metro area hub and ODOT Region 1, and then I do Southern, Eastern, and Central Oregon. And we meet monthly just as area coordinators and discuss all sorts of things, everything safe routes, everything safe routes and beyond. And it's a great moment to collaborate and talk. So with that, thank you so much. Leah and Emily have added their contacts in. I'll be sending out a follow-up email as well too with all of this information. So you'll be getting more. Thank you for joining us. I really appreciate this.
Thank you.
Thank you. There we go.